This year's Nobel Prize in Economics has been awarded to 3 recipients: Daron Acemoglu, James Robinson, and Simon Johnson. Unlike previous winners, their research primarily explores how politics influences economic development. Among the 3, Acemoglu in particular predicted as early as 10 years ago that the Chinese Communist Party would crack down on companies like Alibaba. In Why Nations Fail: The Origins of Power, Prosperity, and Poverty, a book he co-authored with James Robinson, they present theories that shed light on why China is now facing its current challenges. Hi, I'm Dongshan. Welcome to Dig Into China, where we take a deeper look at China to review insights you can rarely find anywhere else. In this episode, I will delve into their perspectives. What does Why Nations Fail really cover? How do they make the case for the inevitable failure of the Chinese Communist Party? In the simplest terms, the central argument of this book focuses on the concepts of inclusive and extractive governments. This distinction between the 2 types of governments is what drives the differences in national development. Ultimately, these contrasting government structures shape the varying trajectories of economic growth. To understand the underlying logic, we must first define what inclusive and extractive governments are. An inclusive government is one that prioritizes sharing wealth as its main goal, whereas an extractive government aims to extract resources and wealth from society. This fundamental difference results in distinct social structures. In an inclusive government, the aim of wealth sharing promotes citizen participation in economic activities. To support this goal, the government prioritizes the smooth operation of the market economy, particularly by safeguarding private property rights. Furthermore, to foster ongoing wealth growth and enhance productivity, an inclusive government must ensure that new enterprises can emerge without being stifled. In contrast, the function of an extractive government is fundamentally different. An extractive government primarily serves a small elite whose main role is to extract wealth from society for their benefit. Consequently, the entire system emphasizes creating a robust extraction mechanism to ensure that wealth is effectively harvested. In essence, an inclusive government is one that strives for collective prosperity, while an extractive government aims to enrich its rulers. The authors illustrate the distinction between these 2 types of governments by using the example of North and South Korea. In South Korea, young people receive quality education, allowing them to engage in the process of wealth creation and sharing. Moreover, companies in South Korea ensure the protection of private wealth, among other advantages. This environment encourages active participation in economic development, enabling everyone to benefit from its success. In contrast, North Korea provides its students with poor education, and they are also obligated to serve in the military after graduation. Additionally, even when North Koreans do work, most of the wealth they create is extracted by the Kim family. However, the cases of North and South Korea are quite extreme. Many countries fall into a gray area and may even accuse each other for governance issues. Take China and the US, for example. Who is the extractive government and who is the inclusive one? The answers vary greatly depending on who you ask. For dissidents, the CCP is clearly an extractive government, constantly exploiting and draining the wealth of the people. But for the little pinks, CCP supporters, the US is the extractive government, where ordinary citizens are oppressed by a wealthy elite, particularly Jews. They see the CCP as the true people's government, working for the welfare of all. President Xi's slogan of common prosperity even hints at the idea of an inclusive government. Identify whether a government is inclusive or extractive isn't based on guesswork. The authors clearly define 2 essential criteria for a government to be considered inclusive. First, political power must be broadly distributed, ensuring political pluralism. Second, the government must have centralized authority to enforce its policies effectively. Political pluralism is fairly straightforward. In China, political power has never been shared. Not only is voting for or running as a representative in the National People's Congress out of question, but even the right to openly discuss politics is absent. It's clear that China lacks political pluralism, and in the author's view, a government without true pluralism cannot be considered inclusive. The logic is straightforward. People naturally act in their own self-interest. Once someone gains political power, they will use it to allocate economic benefits to themselves. For a system to effectively share wealth, political power must first be widely distributed. Only by sharing political power can the distribution of wealth across society be achieved. What does centralized government authority entail? The authors use Somalia as an example. While Somalia is poor, dictatorial, and chaotic, its political power isn't centralized. The country is fragmented with various warlords ruling in a clan-based system. This leads to a political structure that is, in a way, quite diverse, similar to the multi-party system seen in some parliamentary nations. However, the sharing of political power in Somalia is undermined by the absence of a strong central government to maintain basic order. Consequently, even with shared political authority, an inclusive government cannot emerge. Warlords and clans frequently engage in armed conflicts to pursue their interests, disregarding established rules. This hinders the establishment of an effective social contract for wealth distribution. Without a centralized authority to uphold order, the formation of an inclusive government remains impossible. From this, we can conclude that sharing political power and having a strong centralized government are essential conditions for a country to be classified as an inclusive government. Thus, according to the author's definition, the CCP is a clear example of an extractive government. Although it has centralized authority, it lacks the characteristics of political pluralism. Now let's examine how inclusive and extractive governments affect economic development, as well as why the authors argue that China's classification as an extractive government leads to actions such as suppressing Alibaba, ultimately resulting in economic stagnation. First, to understand why extractive governments are doomed to fail while inclusive governments are likely to succeed, we need to introduce another concept: creative destruction. Understanding this concept is crucial for grasping the subsequent points. Creative destruction is a theory proposed by Joseph Schumpeter, initially intended to support the Marxist arguments and illustrate the inevitable collapse of capitalism. In our daily perception, we tend to think of technological advancement as universally beneficial, believing that they improve conditions for everyone over time. After all, technological progress should ultimately be advantageous for all. However, this isn't always true. A classic example is the introduction of the iPhone, which revolutionized the mobile industry and marked the beginning of the smartphone era. While the majority have reaped the benefits of this transition, traditional phone manufacturers like Nokia and BlackBerry have faced severe setbacks. This highlights the negative consequences of technological progress for certain groups. Expanding on the concept of creative destruction, we find that innovations can significantly disrupt social classes. For example, the invention of the steam engine initiated the Industrial Revolution, which led to the rise of the bourgeoisie and ultimately dismantled the monarchical rule. Technological advancement not only generates wealth but also transforms social structures, often undermining royal authority in the process. This narrative is a classic storyline found in Chinese textbooks and aligned with the concept of creative destruction. According to this idea, technological advancements are directly connected to increases in productivity, and these productivity gains inevitably lead to shifts in social classes. Any change in class structure poses a threat to the interests of the current ruling class, prompting them to exert significant effort to resist such innovations. This encapsulates Schumpeter's theory of creative destruction. Schumpeter contended that Western monopolistic capitalists would hinder technological advancement, leading him to predict the eventual collapse of capitalism. However, the results have not aligned with his expectations. Thanks to the introduction of various antitrust laws in the US and Europe, these regions have undergone multiple cycles of creative destruction. This doesn't imply that Schumpeter's theory is completely invalid. The authors of Why Nations Fail have enhanced his theory, addressing its limitations. In this updated perspective, it is not the capitalists who hinder creative destruction, but rather an extractive government. On the other hand, a country with an inclusive government will not obstruct the process of creative destruction. A prime illustration of this narrative is found in China during the Ming and Qing dynasties. For an extended period, these dynasties upheld a closed-door policy, excluding foreign technology. The reasons behind this vary. Some attribute it to the emperor's arrogance, while others cite the ideology of the Celestial Empire. However, from the author's viewpoint, this phenomenon stemmed from the nature of an extractive government. For the rulers of China, Western inventions symbolized potential technological progress, but they were perceived as threats to their authority rather than advantages. Such technological innovations could strengthen the bourgeoisie, transform popular beliefs, and create uncertainty around their rule. This inherent threat is the primary reason why Chinese dynasties rejected the introduction of these technologies. Rulers always aim to create an economic system that favors their interests. When power is concentrated among a small group, they lack the motivation to accept technological innovations. This is primarily because these innovations are seldom developed by the ruling class. After all, the steam engine wasn't invented by Emperor Qianlong. Instead, it is the innovators and the users of new technologies who are driven by the potential for social advancement, which poses a threat to the current ruling elite. As a result, extractive governments are fundamentally at odds with technological progress. When rulers represent the majority, the dynamic shifts significantly. Although the inventor of a technological innovation may reap the greatest rewards, the broader population can also benefit from these advancements. In this scenario, society will be motivated to promote innovation. It is only when the beneficiaries of technological progress, the majority, become the ruling class, that innovation will be welcomed, making inclusive governments the system that supports and fosters technological development. The author presents a unique perspective on why the Industrial Revolution emerged in the West, linking it to the Glorious Revolution, which shifted the British government from an extractive to an inclusive one. This transformation created an environment conducive to the Industrial Revolution in England. The fundamental premise is that creative destruction can only thrive within an inclusive government framework. Let's revisit the topic of the Chinese Communist Party and China's development. If an inclusive government is essential for success, how can we account for China's earlier economic growth? The author addresses this question by explaining that while extractive governments are ultimately unsustainable, they can still achieve a degree of development during certain periods. Extractive governments can be categorized into three types. The first type is an extractive government that cannot establish a centralized authority, with Somalia serving as a prime example. Such a government is doomed to stagnation. Not only does civil society fail to flourish, but the wealth that dictators can extract is also severely limited. The second type encompasses North Korea and the Congo under Mobutu's regime. In these extractive governments, central authority was established, but the rulers concentrated all their efforts on exploiting the populace. Consequently, while the top leaders are often very affluent, the overall nation experiences widespread poverty due to the severe extraction of resources from the people. The third category consists of nations such as contemporary China, South Korea during Patriotism era, and the former Soviet Union. These governments have established centralized power, and their leaders are aware that economic development can enhance their wealth. They recognize that expanding the economy allows for greater extraction of resources. While society can experience growth under these conditions, this development has its limitations, particularly when innovation becomes necessary for continued progress. These regimes encounter significant challenges. In the instances of China, South Korea under Patriotism and the former Soviet Union, their development took place during a phase of industrialization. This growth was not driven by technological innovation, but rather by the absorption of existing technologies, capital accumulation, and improvement in production machinery. Such development is fully controllable by the ruling elite, who understand what industries will thrive and where opportunities lie. This allows them to strategically position themselves to capture a large portion of the benefits derived from societal progress. Moreover, their proactive planning ensures that their power remains intact even as the economy grows. However, when genuine technological innovation becomes necessary, this type of development will abruptly cease. Authentic technological breakthroughs are unpredictable and can disrupt existing social structure. For example, the advent of ChatGPT was entirely unforeseen. Such innovations evoke fear among the ruling authorities, triggering instinctive pushback against them. This resistance results in suppression, and when innovation is curtailed, economic growth in China will inevitably stagnate. In summary, Why Nations Fail presents a key idea. Genuine innovation conflicts with extractive governments. During the industrialization phase, an extractive government can experience some level of development by effectively copying and appropriating foreign technologies, especially if it maintains a strong central authority and has enlightened leadership. However, when a country's growth necessitates innovation for further progress, the limitation of extractive governments begin to emerge. These governments ultimately hinder social innovation, which can lead to economic stagnation. Why Nations Fail, released in 2012, faced rebuttals from the Chinese Communist Party as early as 2014. Nevertheless, the CCP's current resistance to technological innovation aligns with the predictions made in the book. It remains to be seen whether this stance will result in a total economic collapse in China. Certainly, the CCP, as a skilled authoritarian regime, understands the significance of innovation for societal progress. Consequently, it is actively seeking ways to promote innovation while operating within an extractive government framework. To accomplish this, the CCP aims to ensure that all innovations remain controllable, allowing for creativity without permitting destructive disruption or creative destruction. The objective is to drive technological advancements that boost productivity without causing shifts in the existing class structure. Achieving this requires the establishment of a state-driven innovation model. If we reflect on the notable high-tech achievements that China has showcased in recent years, what comes to mind? Notable examples include Huawei's 5G technology and the 3 new high-tech sectors. These innovations clearly illustrate the extent of government involvement and control, with Huawei effectively operating as a state-owned enterprise, and the 3 new high-tech sectors being entirely products of government planning and direction. This evokes a feeling reminiscent of Emperor Qianlong personally inventing the steam engine, implying that as long as technological progress is driven by the ruling class, it poses no threat to their authority. However, I'm not optimistic about whether this method can truly stimulate genuine technological innovation. Furthermore, I've only touched on a portion of the author's content. The author devotes considerable attention to detailing how inclusive governments are established. I encourage my viewers to check out the book for a more comprehensive understanding. Thank you so much for watching. If you find this video helpful, please like it, drop a comment below, and hit the subscribe button right here. It really helps YouTube suggest my videos to others. I'll be back with more content soon. Until then, stay well.